was the baseball coach at the University of South Dakota, and he's better at insurance than he was at that, and he's not that good at insurance. But anyway, he's really good at running this banquet, so let's give Scott a hand. Thank you, Scott. Also, another invaluable person with the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame is Ron Hoffman, who's kind of like our executive director. Ron is the historian. Those of you going into the Hall of Fame would have heard from Ron. He puts together a lot of the things on the internet, on our website, which is a very good website. And Ron is just a stalwart of the committee and is very important to this banquet as well. Thank you, Ron. Also want to thank First National Bank. They're our presenting sponsor for the Premier Center display, which once the indoor football game begins, when we're done, you can go look at the display. It's down to our right into the Premier Center area. It's very well done. Bob and Nan Baker were instrumental in putting that together along with Scott, and it is just a tremendous thing for us to be there in that Premier Center where hundreds of thousands of people walk by it and will see your picture, your story. If you're in the Hall of Fame, no one will ever know about me, but that's okay. That's okay. Also want to thank our other major sponsors, Sanford Health, the Gateway Lounge, First Premier Bank, and Premier Bank Card. Mike Hendrickson, who has got the best job in the world, he's making $120,000 a year. He's on 5 hours a day on the radio, or 5 hours a week, excuse me. At 2 o'clock, somewhat statewide, he is banned in certain parts of the state. But Mike is going to introduce our past inductees that are with us in attendance. Please hold your applause until he's through the list. And also, if you're a past inductee, please stay on your feet until Mike's done. Mike?
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. By the way, your dessert is still safe. I just checked. Listen, I would really encourage you also to check out the website, sdshof.com, because it tells you the great stories of the people that are here tonight, but also the incredible stories that we've got. It's about so much more than sports. It's about the history of the state, and it's absolutely wonderful. So check out that website. Also, in the past year, as we celebrate the people that are going in and the people that are joining us tonight that have gone in years past, we want to keep in mind 3 people that we have lost this past year. 3 people that were members of the Hall of Fame. We remember Rex Sweat, the great athlete out of Huron. We remember Roger Nelson, the outstanding athlete and coach out of Brookings, and Gary Munson, who was the amazing coach at Mitchell as well. So we lost those this year, so we'll keep them in our memories. As Jeff said, please hold your applause, but we do ask that the honorees actually stand and stay standing until the end. We'll just do it alphabetically. Lolly Forsyth, incredible gymnastics coach. Lolly is back there. Gordy Fosness, great basketball player and coach in his time. Vic Godfrey is here, an international track coach. A fascinating story on Vic. Rich Greeno, Mr. Track in South Dakota. Rich, you stand up. Let's see, Mel Klein is here. Again, incredible basketball player and coach. Gail Hoover, same applies. Wonderful coach, USF player and coach at Parker. We've got Jeffrey Lemaire, who is one of the greatest boxers that this state has ever turned out. Dean Mann, if you have run track in your life in South Dakota, Dean has probably fired a gun in your ear, so we appreciate him. Marv Rasmussen is here, outstanding athlete at Claremont and college athlete as well. We also have Jill Thieler-Schleckaway. Jill, one of the outstanding all-around athletes at Mitchell High, but incredible track athlete at North Dakota State. We've got Marv Sherrill, the incredible wrestling coach from up at Watertown. Marv, great to have you here this evening. Bob Swanhorst, again, a great basketball player and coach. Swanee, you want to stand up? And Bob Winter, the legendary coach from down at Yankton. Those are your former inductees who have chosen to join us tonight. Let's give them all a nice round of applause.
Thank you, Mike. Also would like to make note that Mayor Mike Huther is here. Mike, thank you for coming. With tonight's inductees, there will be 275 people in the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame. It's a lot of great coaches, athletes, contributors in the history of South Dakota sports. Even to those who closely follow our state sports history, it's almost impossible to know all of the people in the Hall of Fame. Their careers span more than 100 years and a vast array of sports. Here on the big screens are some of the South Dakota Sports Hall of Famers who made their mark nationally. See how many you know.
for action.
To try to lift him. Here's that counterattack of Randy Lewis, and he scores.
Randy Lewis from Rapid City, South Dakota.
Here they come down the final out. Can Ron Clark catch the Moody? They're going through the field. He's coming up. He's passing to Moody. Look at Mills. Look at Mills. Look at Mills. Coming on. Mills is coming on. It might be Bill Mills. What a tremendous surprise here. Bill Mills of the United States wins the 10,000 meters.
We had some miscommunication. Mike forgot 2 Hall of Famers that are here. I hope they haven't left.
You snuck in around me. I apologize for that. We need to recognize Kay Stormo, who is here, outstanding athlete from Watertown High School. Great to have you here. And also the legend from the University of South Dakota, Joe Salem, is here. Joe, where are you at? Stand up. Thank you very much. I apologize for missing you. We'll do better next year, all right? Thanks, Jeff.
About 10 minutes, we'll see Mike again. So hang in there. Pretty amazing stuff. I'm glad that, excuse me, I only get to see that once a year because it almost makes you cry. How many great, excuse me, athletes we've had in this state. And we induct 10 more tonight, athletes, coaches, contributors. And we're going to start with Rich Hansen, who you saw give the prayer tonight. Rich Hansen. The 1954 Aberdeen Central and 1958 Northern State grad has been officiating high school and college sports since 1959. He also has been a contributor to many local organizations. Hansen was a high school and college basketball referee from 1959 to 1979 and a football ref from 1963 to 1984. He reffed the first football game at the Dakota Dome in 1979. He has been a track and field official since 1975. Hansen has been a starter for countless high school and college meets, and he has been a Howard Wood Dakota Relays volunteer and starter since 1964. He's been supervisor of officials for the Sioux Interstate Conference, the Greater Dakota Conference, and the Metro Conference. He was commissioner of the South Dakota-Iowa Conference from 1998 to 2000. He's been a member of the Sports and Rec Committee of the Sioux Empire Area Chamber of Commerce since 1976. In 1995, Hansen received the National Distinguished Contributor Award for officials, and he was the B'nai B'rith Sioux Falls Sportsman of the Year. From our committee, presenting to Rich is Bruce Conley.
I take something like this a page at a time. First of all, I'd like to have you recognize a lot of my family that is here, my 3 children, their offspring, my sister and her family, and lots of friends and associates. I would also like to thank the Sports and Rec, South Sports Hall of Fame Committee for recognizing me in this manner. Let me tell you, it's a humbling experience. I've enjoyed it. I'm enjoying this night, and I'm going to appreciate this recognition for as long as I live. Many of you are familiar with sports and officiating and have officiated yourself or know somebody who has. And I've always found it interesting that they can walk in the gym dressed like civilians, which they are, darn good people, men and women, but when they put their stripes on and come back on the court, they become different people, at least in many fans' minds. We all know that from almost every call, there's going to be half right and half wrong, and lots of people will recognize that the best call they made is the one that is at the final end, and they'll remember that. Through the years, I have not seen all, but I have heard about a variety of play situations that have occurred that they would like to talk about. And I want to share some of these with you, let you just mull over them, and when we get to the end of them and the end of my presentation here, we'll give you the right answer. First one that I can remember is that an official was carrying out a 15-yard penalty, and as he marches towards the goal line, he finds himself a couple of steps inside the goal line, takes a look around, throws his arm up and says, "Touchdown." Another one dealing with football is that in a really pretty highly contested game, people are seeing what's going on around them, and the quarterback takes the snap, runs towards the line of scrimmage. The intent is to jump up in the air and pass it to a tight receiver as he crosses the middle. He gets up to the front, takes that jump, sees that his tight end is no longer there, comes back down, and the official throws a flag. And his reason was that he thought the guy traveled. And another one that I have heard about, and I'm not surprised at this one, that in a football game, you remember back a few years, the goalposts were not quite as high as they happen to be now. They stick up in the air a long ways, and in this case, they were relatively short. And the kicker kicks one, it's right through the middle, but it's a really high kick. He's got the ability to be able to do that. Kick is good. Official throws the flag and says, "No good, it was too high." In basketball, there's a situation that came up, and I think this might have been a kind of a lull in the activities of the game, and the referee sees a man that's in the lane, counts up to 3, calls a 3-second rule, and then finds out it was a defensive player. And then there's a track meet where there's obvious in the situation that a runner has jumped and is run and wins the race. And afterward, somebody came up to the starter and said, "Didn't you see that guy start? He was false starting." And he just very merely said back to him, "All I do is start him. I don't stop him." Officiating is an interesting part of sport. And I'm so proud that through these long years, many years, that I've had the opportunity to interact with some very, very special people that have served as mentors to me. It all goes back to my high school days with Milo Jackson, who was a well-renowned coach back in the 50s in Aberdeen Central. I then went on to Northern and had a couple of them that were there, people that I never will forget, Clark Swisher and Bob Walks. And as the time has gone on and we've gotten closer to my tenure in this city, Arnie Bauer was one, and you just met Dean Mann, a longtime track official and a very close friend and partner of mine for many, many track meets. In the whole area of sport, something that I have noticed through all these years in watching football and basketball games is in competition. There seems to be some people who know more than the people that are on the court. And it's not anything that's probably going to change, but I do want to bring it to our attention again, in that in many games, there will be a code of, I don't know if you call it a code of conduct, but an athlete will read something that talks about being polite in addressing people and accepting calls that they are made, et cetera, et cetera. I know for a fact, as you do too, as soon as the ball goes up in the air or as soon as the ball is kicked, that just absolutely goes out the window. And I'm hoping that as time goes by and you as athletic fans can kind of set a standard, I'm hoping that I get to see the time in a game when that is held practically true as far as the spectators, coaches, officials are concerned. I look forward to that time, and I challenge you to be an example for good, proper conduct in any type of sporting event. And by the way, the answer, and this is one that I called, let's see if you got it right. It was 3 seconds in the lane on the defense. How many of you got it right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. Great job. It's always great to honor officials and then talk about them afterwards, just like we do after every game. I think of all the money, and some of you guys that coached, and I think of a couple guys on the committee, Gail Hoover, Bob Winter, how much money they spent for therapy and counseling because of officials like Rich. Our next inductee is Tom Long. His presenter is Ron Ryer. Tom Long. Perhaps the state's greatest prep wrestling coach, the 1944 Forestburg High and 1951 Dakota Wesleyan grad, coached in Rapid City for 33 years, the first 13 at Central and the last 20 at Stevens. Long is perhaps best known for winning 8 state titles during his tenure and coaching Randy Lewis to several national high school records. Lewis went on to win an Olympic gold medal in 1984. Long's teams won almost 300 matches, 246 duels, 20 invitationals, and 23 in the postseason. And they also finished as state runner-up 7 times. He retired in 1989 with more state titles than any wrestling coach in state history. Long started his coaching career in 1952 at Bridgeport, Nebraska, before coming to Rapid City in 1956. Long was chosen National High School Wrestling Coach of the Year in 1983. He was named to the National High School Athletic Coaches Association's Hall of Fame in 2001.
Ready, wrestle. If I'd known I would have to get up here and talk, I would have had a good piece of paper about a foot long there with all the words on it, and I'd be belting that out, but I didn't know that. But I'm a pretty good speaker. I know a few words that some of you may not know. But I'm not going to use them anymore. Wrestling was quite a sport. When they first started, nobody knew anything about it, especially me. But once we got started, I was a quick learner. I got enough people out on the mat there and got them going. Most of them, the biggest part of them is to get them into shape. And that's all for basketball, football, track, and everything. Get them into shape. Be an athlete. We don't have to have enough other people around to look at you. We need a lot of people to look at you. And that's what happened with me. With a few of the wrestlers that I had, some of them were pretty good wrestlers. Mention just one of them, Randy Lewis. He went a national champion, went to college, win a lot of matches, get your name in the paper, everybody knows who you are. If you don't get the guys the right job or the right get into shape and everything, they know who the coach is. But even though that we did win a few, we lost a few too. It isn't everybody that's going to be a great wrestler or in any sport. Football, basketball, there's a lot of them out there that just go out there for the fun of it. But when you get out there one-on-one, it's not much fun, especially if you're not very good shape. But that's what I tried to get to wrestlers, to be in shape. Know when the match is over, know when the match starts, and keep yourself available to get things done. That's about it for tonight. But I like to come back again just to sit and talk to everybody. I get a lot of people here that talk, and a lot of them want to talk about the referees. I get along with them pretty well. I think that must be the reason that I win a little bit more, that the referees respect me. So it's a one-on-one thing with the referee also. Maybe three people out there looking for all referees. But I get the job. I do the best that I can. Some people like it, somebody don't. Can't hear a thing. Okay. I wasn't prepared for being up here, so I think I'll draw an end to it. And we'll see you again next year. Thank you.
I don't think Tom would mind me telling you that he's 90 years old, sharp as a tack. And a wrestling coach could get up here when they're 90, basketball coaches can't. I'm sure Tom would agree with that. Our next inductee is Joe Trudeau. Scott Fiedler is the presenter for Joe.
Joe Trudeau. The 1969 Jefferson High and University of South Dakota grad starred on one of the most famous prep football teams in state history. Trudeau was a 4-year starter at end on a Jefferson team that went 35-1 with a 33-game win streak. As a junior, Trudeau scored 20 touchdowns, caught 28 passes as the Blackhawks outscored foes 676-27. As a senior, the 6'2", 190-pounder scored 13 touchdowns, caught 25 passes, and blocked 10 punts. That school year, Trudeau was an all-state player in football and basketball and placed second in the low and high hurdles at state, helping the Blackhawks win the Class B track title. At USD, Trudeau was a standout in football and track. He was a 2-time All-North Central Conference tight end and set school records for receiving yards in a season, 543 on 22 receptions, and the longest touchdown in school history, 84. As a senior, he was an honorable mention All-American as the Coyotes went 9-1 and won the North Central Conference title.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank all my friends and family and my teammates, and I'd like to send a thank you to the Hall of Fame Committee for allowing this event to happen. It's a great day in South Dakota. This is a humbling experience for me, growing up in a small town in Jefferson, South Dakota. A lot of you probably don't know we're in the southeastern part of the state. I'd like to honor my coaches that I had from day one. Coach Jim DeYoung is here tonight. He was my, from grade school on, he was my coach. Matt Mattias was my football coach, and Roger Hansen was a basketball coach. I'd like to thank all my teammates for being here. Jefferson had a great atmosphere for winning traditions for many years, and it's been a great honor to represent that small community. I have many of my family and friends here tonight and teammates from those unbelievable years. I had the good fortune to probably play on two of what I consider the best teams to play football in the state of South Dakota, the Jefferson Blackhawks and the USD Coyotes. My college coaches, I had the great honor of having two coaches that are also in this Hall of Fame here tonight. Coach Joe Salem and Coach Dan Lennon were my track coaches. Then there's my college teammates. What an unbelievable experience. To this day, we get together and we have a group called the Brotherhood. I think there's 85 of us that communicate regularly through the internet now. It's a phenomenal experience. We have a get-together every year at USD, and we have a great following. I'd like to thank all my teammates that are here again tonight. What an opportunity I've had to be with them. I'd also like to thank my beautiful wife, Jackie, which we met back in 1971. And my 6 children are here and 14 grandchildren. What an honor it has been for me to raise these children. Another great honor I had was a good friend of mine who played football with us for years, and his wife and family are here tonight, and I think you all remember him as Tom Theobald. And in conclusion, I would like all my teammates and my coaches from those areas to please stand and be recognized at this time. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Reminder again, that's Rick Norris, and this is Ann Muntz. They're signing for us tonight. Doing a great job, I would guess. I have no idea. They are doing a great job. Our next inductee is why they're here. His name is Jim Mitchell. Dean Mann is the presenter for Jim.
Jim Mitchell. The National Deaf Basketball Player of the Year as a senior in 1954, the 6'1" Mitchell averaged 27.2 points a game for the South Dakota School for the Deaf that season, including a 52-point effort against Worthing. The 27.2 was a national deaf record. In the 52-point game, he was 17 for 24 from the field, 18 out of 19 from the free throw line. Mitchell never scored fewer than 18 points in a game that season. He was named U.S. Deaf Basketball Player of the Year by Silent Worker and the Frat publications. Mitchell, nicknamed Deadshot, averaged 25.7 points as a junior. He scored 1,109 points in his final 3 seasons at the School for the Deaf. He was also a standout in football and track. After high school, he excelled in basketball, softball, volleyball, and bowling. He was even an all-star 7 times in basketball and 3 times in softball while competing for the Sioux Falls Deaf Club at the Midwest Athletic Association of the Deaf Tournament.
Can you all see me here? All my friends in the deaf community? Okay. Well, hello to everyone tonight. On behalf of my family and my relatives and the deaf community, we send all of you our love. We love you a lot, to the deaf community. My real name is Wendell James Mitchell, but people call me Jim, and that's because my mom recognized the fact that I couldn't really say Wendell real easily. So instead of James, she just went with Jim, and that's what I've been known as most of my life. It's Jim Mitchell and not Wendell. I'd like to introduce my wife. On April 20th, we'll be married 53 years. And Jay, my son, is very much involved for the last 30 years as an athlete, just about everything, darts, bowling, baseball, everything. Great athlete. And my daughter, she played basketball at Washington High School and volleyball for Sioux Falls Christian, and later for deaf basketball teams, and she won a championship as a team member for that. And my daughter comes from Michigan. Her name is Jody, and her friend and 3 children are from all Michigan. They're all here tonight, so I'm so proud of you for joining me here tonight. So I love you all. And last, I'd like to introduce my brother. Some time ago, we had the High School Basketball Hall of Fame, and I forgot to introduce both my brother and sister, so I'm not going to forget to do that. I wanted to mention you both. So, my brother graduated from Washington High School and played football. He was a quarterback. Played basketball, softball, or baseball, I should say, and played some track. He went to Augustana College and played football there as a quarterback there for 3 years. Played basketball there with Dave McCracken and Phil Miedema and others, great players. My sister Barbara, when I was a senior at the School for the Deaf, my sister just was entering first grade. And so I graduated, went to Gallaudet for 5 years, or she did, and got married. And now she's living in California, in Fremont, and she teaches at the California School for the Deaf in Fremont. Does a lot of outreach programs out there and that kind of thing. Just a wonderful person. Both my brother and sister are retired. I was born in Watertown and moved to Sioux Falls in 1950. We bought a cafe and ran that, but about 2 months after that, my father passed away. And my mother was struck with, well, how am I going to do this? And she was a wonderful cook, and my dad ran the business part of it, but my brother, my sister, myself, and Pat, we all helped as much as we could, help our mom run the cafe for as long as we could. When I became a senior in high school, our goal was to be champions in football, basketball, and track. But unfortunately, we didn't win, thanks to Brandon, in basketball. So our football season, however, the championship game, we played once again against Brandon, and we beat them. And so it was a nice, with only a six-man team, I mean, that was a nice reward. And to play a school in that division was just an amazing experience. The first game, South Dakota School for the Deaf, we were established in 1949. We didn't have football prior to that. And I was in the 8th grade, and we had a 4-0 record that year. The following year, it was a 6-1 record, which was pretty nice. The following year, 2 wins, 5 losses due to a lot of injuries. I wasn't playing because I had a fractured shoulder myself. The last year was 6-1. One of the funny things that happened, this was back in 52, or 51, I should say. One of our deaf or hard of hearing members was playing football, and they were playing against another team, and they were in the huddle, and the guy that was hard of hearing said, "Oh, I think they said they're going to pass." And sure enough, we stole the ball, and we ran on the outside, and he was able to hear just enough to be dangerous. So that's how we got that season that year. So we appreciated his involvement. Now, our basketball team, when I was in the 8th grade, I saw Jerry Berkey, playing for us. He was just a little guy, 5'6". And we thought, well, could he be a center? And I thought, well, I don't know. I mean, we practiced, and over a couple of years, he had a great hook shot and jump shot, too. So he became an outstanding player as well. After graduation, I had the opportunity to work at a base and wall shop. It wasn't my favorite kind of thing to do, but at least it was a job. After a fire, I decided to go to linotype school, and I learned some linotype for about 9 months and got a job in Mankato. And then Beersford, and then Howard, and then Alexandria, South Dakota. And then to Salem before going to the Yankton Press and Dakotan, and finally to the Argus Leader. Then, at last, I made it to John Morrell's. Played baseball for Howard, South Dakota, and after about 2 or 3 games, I had to quit because of my back. Also played basketball for Treb Silo. My brother and I played for them. Bob Swanhorst, Phil Miedema, we all played together, and after a few games, once again, my back caused me to bow out. In 1961, I finally had surgery, and I had some things worked on and removed, and since then I've been doing fine. Forgot to add to the program book that I was the assistant varsity coach from 82 to 83, and I was working at John Morrell's at the time. And so right after my shift was done, I would rush home and eat, and then drive out to the South Dakota School for the Deaf and work with the boys on their junior varsity, and then drive back home, and then the next day go back to Morrell's and do my shift all over again. And it was kind of a routine that I had for 5 months straight until I finally figured out this is too much for me. I can't hack it. So I loved the kids, and I wanted to play ball with them, and it was a great experience. But talking about bowling, that was another sport. In my junior year in high school, I started bowling, and the coach heard about this, and he said, no, you got to quit bowling because we want you to play basketball, and we don't want you to get hurt playing bowling. So I had to give up bowling for a couple of years, but after I graduated, I went back, started bowling again, and it was something that I really, really loved. But then I had some rotator cuff problems, and tried to get that fixed, and then I was bowling at about 300, and then after about 7-8 years, the first frame I got was a spare, and then strike, and I missed the 300. I got a 290. The next game was all strikes, 16 strikes, but I still didn't get the 300. After I got married, my wife and I lived in Salem for a while, and about every weekend we would come to Sioux Falls. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we'd have to come to Sioux Falls and be back at home on Sunday night so I could work the next day, and then we'd go back and try to bowl on Mondays. Monday nights we did that until we started having kids, and then I started bowling in Salem. It's been a wonderful experience, and so I'd just like to thank my wife Janice for letting me participate and letting me attend games and letting me see things at Augie, at Washington, Lincoln, O'Gorman. It's just been an amazing experience to see these kids develop their talent. And at Augie, Division II championships, wow, what a amazing feat, and South Dakota's on the map. I had a chance to go with some friends, David Sukup and his wife, and to see that game, and the South Dakota State University winning that game, but then losing it by just at the very end. SDSD unfortunately doesn't have any sports today, and the school is closed down thanks to our South Dakota Board of Regents, but there's still an administration there, there's still an outreach program there, and I would like to see us return to a day once again when we have a real bona fide school with a bona fide athletic program once again. Several years ago, my sister-in-law, Evie Harris, had a chance to talk a little bit about the Freilich family. They have 9 brothers and sisters, and all of their parents and all of the kids were deaf. His family was from North Dakota. She would talk about these people, a lot of her memories of knowing these folks, and it was a kind of a prolific family. Come to find out that she may be a related cousin. So we were kind of amazed to see that. And also, there was a guy that played for Lincoln High School and played football and basketball. And someone said that Kathy Hokra told me, my niece said that I think you might be related to Nazi. And I thought, wow, that would be great. And so I decided to watch him play ball, and I looked for him and tried to see if we might be related. So I wrote a note, and so they connected us to the right family. And I said, you this person's daughter? And yes. And are you related to this person who happens to be a cousin of mine, which means, we might be related. So you might be surprised. You might be related to a deaf person yourself. So in closing, I'd just like to say, Dean Swanson, thank you for getting me into the Hall of Fame and encouraging me to fill out the paperwork and all that kind of thing. And I'm surprised that I was selected, thanks to you, Dean, and to the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame Committee for electing me as being an inductee tonight in the South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame. Thanks to all of you. We love you.
I'm in trouble if I don't wait long enough for Ann or Rick to come up here, so that's why I'm delaying. Besides the fact I'm old and don't think very fast. Our next inductee is Bob Olson, and his presenter is John Papendick.
Bob Olson. The Aberdeen Central and 1977 Northern State grad helped Northern succeed in athletics for almost 40 years. He served the Wolves in the role of athletic director for 13 years, starting in 1999. Prior to that, Olson coached the NSU men's basketball team for 14 seasons, winning 6 conference titles and taking the Wolves to national prominence on both the NAIA and NCAA Division II levels. Olson amassed a career record of 305 and 129, was named the National Coach of the Year once and the Conference Coach of the Year 5 times. Under his direction, the Wolves made 5 NAIA National Tournament appearances, including runner-up finishes in 94 and 95. In NCAA Division II, the Wolves earned national tournament berths in each of their first 4 seasons under the NCAA umbrella. Those postseason runs were highlighted by an Elite 8 berth in the 1997-98 season. He coached the NSU women's team to a 44-10 record in 2 seasons before taking over as men's coach in 1985.
Thank you, Jeff. I think you're doing a great job, too, by the way. I don't know what Jeff thinks, but you're doing great. It's truly an honor to be here this evening. I would like to, first of all, congratulate the other inductees. It's very humbled to be associated with the group of individuals that are getting inducted tonight, and the names that were read off earlier of the people that stood up, it's quite an honor, and I take it very seriously. Thank you very much. I know that I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee, the selection committee. I'm not quite sure how the process works, but I really can't put into words what it means to myself and my family to be up here this evening. I know that I got a call from John Papendick before Christmas and really wasn't sure what John wanted, and I thank John Papendick. If you live in the northern part of the state, what John does for student athletes and coaches is quite incredible, and we really appreciate all that John does. All of us that have been involved in athletics, we don't
do things by ourselves. Any successes that we reach or any awards that we receive is because of the hard work of a lot of people. In my case, it's because of a number of student athletes I had an opportunity to work with and a number of coaches I had an opportunity to work with when I was an athletic director. Some of you are here this evening, and I really appreciate your support and you being here tonight also. I was very fortunate to spend all my career, except 3 years, at Northern State University. I was at Mayville State College in North Dakota 1 year, and to return back to Aberdeen later to be a head high school coach at Aberdeen College for 2 years. And it's really interesting. I got asked the question, I still get asked the question quite often, to tell you the truth. Did you ever have aspirations to move on to bigger and better places? For us, we love Northern, we love Aberdeen. That's been our home. I know that I've always believed in coaching that if you find a community that you can raise your family and enjoy living in, you find a place that you can be successful coaching, you stay there a long time. Unfortunately, today it seems like we as coaches, we leave town and we get our resumes in our back pockets and we're always looking to move on to bigger, better places. I know that I was also very fortunate to have many fine mentors in my life besides my parents. The first mentor is my high school basketball coach and his wife, Pierre Ducharme, and his wife, Mary. I had lost my father when I was in high school. In kind of an awkward age, you lose your father, you don't have your father all around, and Pierre and Mary really took me under their wing and taught me that in coaching, you just don't care about young people from 3:15 to 5:30. You care about every aspect of their life, and I think they were true examples of that. I also have to talk or mention some guys like Coach Clark Swisher, Coach Bob Walks, and Coach Jim Kretschmann, that they were willing to give me an opportunity as a young coach. I know that Coach Walks was not only my basketball coach, but I also was his assistant for a number of years. I learned so much from Coach Walks, just not how to coach, but also a lot of the other things that make you successful in coaching. And Coach Walks was always on the cutting edge of the game of basketball. And really one of those individuals that was really misunderstood. They watched him in the court and games, and he was really wild. He was a tyrant. But he was so much more than that. It's so misunderstood. Coach Jim Kretschmann was the athletic director for the years I was coaching at Northern, and he taught us so much. He taught us about character. He taught us how to try to always do the right thing and make the right decisions. He taught us that coaching was more about leadership than it is about X's and O's. And he also taught us that when coaching's done right, it has the potential to change young people's lives. I mentioned that Northern's a great place with a lot of great people. Continues to be and always will be a very big part of our family's life. We always joke when you get very far south of Watertown, it's like we don't exist sometimes in the northern part of the state. That's probably not all bad, to tell you the truth. I would like to recognize, if I could, some of my family members that are here tonight. First is my wife, Sherry. It's not easy being a spouse of a coach or an athletic director. You know, it takes its toll on you physically, emotionally, your family, and it's so important that we marry the right spouse. And I always told Sherry that it's not going to be the amount of time I spend with you, but I hope it's going to be quality time when I'm with you. And I just can't say enough about you, Sherry, and I thank you for everything that you've done and always appreciate your support. Also is our daughter, Steph, and her husband, Tim Hannigan, who live in Aberdeen, and they moved back to Aberdeen when I retired, to tell you the truth, and it's just been a real blessing for us. And our two little grandboys over there, they're probably under the table right now. Kyler, who's going to be 3-year-olds in May, and Colton's going to be 6-year-old here in July, and have been just the biggest blessing in my wife and I's life, to tell you the truth. We just love those little guys to death. In closing, I would just like to again thank the Hall of Fame committee. I would like to again emphasize that I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am to receive this award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. You can tell he's a leader, young men, and a coach. It was a great line, very sage advice. It's not the amount of time, but the quality of the time that you spend with those you love. I told that to my third, fourth, fifth ex-wife. Hasn't worked as well for me as it did for you, Bob. Our next inductee, I've often wondered when I think of Greg Hansen, if there would have been open enrollment in South Dakota, if he would have played at Parker High School. Since Hurley and Parker were so close. But I also said to him tonight that I saw his coach, Lowell Clausen, was here, his high school coach, and Lowell now looks younger than our next inductee, Greg Hansen. Tim Smith is his presenter.
Greg Hansen. The 1970 Hurley High and Dakota Wesleyan grad averaged a double-double for 8 consecutive seasons, 4 at Hurley, 4 at DWU. He was all-conference all 8 seasons. At Hurley, the 6'7", 205-pounder scored 1,989 points, had 1,663 rebounds, with career highs of 62 points and 34 rebounds. He was recruited by Tennessee, Wyoming, and the legendary Maryland coach Lefty Driesell, but elected to stay in South Dakota and play for Wesleyan. At DWU, Hansen started all 92 games and scored in double figures in 89 of them for Coach Gordy Fosnes. Hansen scored 2,146 points, had 1,047 rebounds at DWU. He averaged 23.3 points, 11.4 rebounds, and 3.3 assists in his career, and twice led the Tigers to conference titles. He did a lot of his shooting from the outside, something rare for a 6'7" player back then. As a senior, he averaged 27 points, 13.3 rebounds, and shot 57%. Hansen still holds the DWU single-season free throw record of 92%.
Well, on a night when we're here to honor South Dakota sports history, I think it's appropriate that we've all seen a bit of history made tonight. When Jeff just read my bio, it was the first time in history that a proud former Lennox Oriole like Jeff has ever said anything nice about a former Hurley Bulldog like myself. So, first of all, I'd just like to thank Jeff for finally seeing the light. As Joe Trudeau did, I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for all of the work that you folks do to ensure that tonight is a very memorable night for the inductees and their families. The South Dakota Sports Hall of Fame has been a very, very important part of the sports landscape in this state for many decades, and you people do a wonderful job. And to the other inductees, I would like to say it's a great honor for me to be in your presence. I've had the privilege of knowing several of them, and Doug Schlepp and I had a very good rivalry in college. We were the same age, played against one another 9 times, and when you played Tech, you were going to get Doug's best, and you better be ready because his best was very, very good. The very first game I ever played in college as a skinny 18-year-old, we played Nebraska Kearney. And our senior star was Tom Miller, kind of known as Mike's dad now, but back then Tom was a great player. And we beat Nebraska Kearney that night, and Tom and I combined for 45 points. And I should mention that Tom did his share because of those 45, Tom scored 42 of them. The second game we played, I scored 6 points. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're wondering now, is this guy going to take us through every one of the 92 games he played in college? And no, there's a point here. Those who know me best know that self-confidence has never been one of my strengths. And after 2 games and scoring a total of 9 points, my confidence was at an all-time low. And I was wondering if this was going to work out and if I should be here. Our third game was at Valley City State. And before the game, our coach, Gordy Fosnes, who sensed that my confidence was very low, took me aside And what he said to me took probably 10 seconds, but it made all the difference in the world. He said, Greg, you can play well, and you can play now. And it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And that night, my third college game, I had 23 points by halftime. And after that, things seemed to go pretty well. And I assure you all, I would not be standing before you tonight if it were not for the faith that Coach Fosnes had in me from the moment I set foot on that campus right out of high school. Thanks, Coach. And the reason I mentioned that story is only to illustrate this point. In all of our lives, it's so important, at times we don't believe in ourselves, to have someone we trust who does believe in us. I've been so blessed, the wonderful memories I have of my late parents. My sister is here tonight who has been so supportive of me in my life, and I'm so grateful. There have been so many teammates, so many friends, so many people that have helped all of us that are up here tonight arrive at this point. Since I was 16 years old, I've had a beautiful girl beside me. Deb and I dated in high school and in college. She took a heavy load of courses at Dakota Wesleyan and went to summer school and graduated with honors in only 3 years. We were married that summer after our third year in college. And I think she's as pretty today as she was when we were 16. Our 3 children, who we love dearly, Tucker, Larissa, Brady, and our friends that are here tonight. You've all changed your plans in order to be with us tonight. We're so grateful. Thank you all for being a part of my life. And in closing, there's a famous arena in Philadelphia called the Palestra. It was built in 1926 and is still a very prominent part of major college basketball on the East Coast. Inside the Palestra, there's a plaque. The inscription reads, and it's a saying that it's always been meaningful to me. The inscription reads, "To play the game is great, to win the game is greater, but to love the game is the greatest of all." And through the victories and the losses, and through the championships and the heartbreaks, and most importantly, through the wonderful, wonderful memories, I, like so many of the rest of you in this crowd tonight, I have loved the game. Thanks so much for this honor. Thanks again, buddy.
Thank you, Greg. Our next inductee is Pat Reisdorfer. Ken Kessinger is Pat's presenter.
Pat Reisdorfer. Though she wasn't recruited, the 1976 Adrian, Minnesota high grad became the first woman inducted into the Augustana Athletic Hall of Fame. In the fall of 1979, the Augustana cross-country coach approached her about joining the team. The first meet was in Brookings. She won the event, thus beginning an illustrious career. She was the Vikings' first female All-American in cross-country, finishing 14th at the AIAW National Meet in 1979 in Tallahassee, Florida. In track, she set records at 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, and 10,000 meters in 1980. The 10,000 time still stands at 34.44. And that was set in Eugene, Oregon at the National Meet, in which she finished 11th overall and was the top finisher among Division II runners. In 1980, she also set North Central Conference records in the 3,000 and 5,000 and won the Jackrabbit 15 road race in a record time. After college, she ran more than a dozen marathons, including the 1987 Boston Marathon, and ran in numerous 5K and 10K races.
I'm a little bit shorter, so I'm going to drop it down a little bit. I wish to thank the South Dakota Hall of Fame Committee for this prestigious honor. I am deeply appreciative and very thankful. I would also give additional thanks for Don Hoffman. I know you're out there, Don. He critiqued all the articles, organized the pictures, and did send friendly reminders per email for due dates. I would also like to thank the following individuals for supporting me tonight: my mother, my father in heaven, my sisters Julie, my sister Joan and her husband Bob, my children Patrick and his wife Mari, my daughter Leah and her boyfriend Phil, my college running buddy and my children's father, Lyle, co-workers from the VA Medical Center, Rich Greeno, Ken Kessinger, Mayor Mike Huther, close and dear friends and neighbors. My athletic career at Augustana would not have been possible without mentioning and including the late Larry Borgum, Vance Butler, Verge Sandvik. Also a great thank you to Coach Jim Agee, Sandy Jersted, Elaine Friest, and Mel Klein. I received a phone call from Ken Kessinger regarding my nomination into the Athletic Hall of Fame this fall. All I could think of was that record that was still holding at Augustana, the 10,000 meters. So the following day, I ran to Augustana to make sure that 10,000 meter record was still there, and by God, it was. So then, my son unfortunately dropped the bomb on me over Christmas and said, "Mom, your 10,000 meter record got broke." And I said, "You gotta be kidding me." So I regret, and please excuse me for stating that I still had that record because it did get broke. With this said, I would like to reminisce about my running days. It has already been 3.5 decades since my running collegiate days. In the early 80s, women's athletics fell under the AIAW, which is the Association of Intercollegiate Athletes for Women. We had no divisions. The year I graduated from Augie, the NCAA took over and divisions emerged. Back 30 years, there were very few specialized athletic stores. Shoes, clothing gear, and look at it today. Specialized stores with all types of gears and shoes to fit any runner. Women's athletic budgets back then, we had little to no budget. And look at it today. Budgets are comparable and equal to men's sports. I have always been very athletic and very competitive. When I was in high school, athletics were not well organized until the year I graduated. During my college years at Augie, my main goal was to succeed in academics. Augustana was noted to be a very highly demanding, academic, and challenging college, which it truly was. I think I had a desk up at the Morrison Library, and that's where I parked myself every night. I wanted to follow my mother's footsteps and obtain a nursing degree. She always told us, with my other 3 sisters, she always said, "Get a nursing degree, you will always have a job and you can always support yourself." So running was simply a passion of mine, something I did for myself and enjoyed doing it. It was the fall of my senior year when I was approached to run cross country. Augie did not have enough women runners out for cross country, and they needed additional runners. I was a walk-on, so I thought about it and agreed to run under one condition, that I would be back in Sioux Falls the following afternoon so I could go back to the farm in Adrian. I was a true home buddy. First meet was at the Edgebrook Golf Course in Brookings, South Dakota. It was that meet that turned me into the competitive female collegiate runner I became. I had no idea golf carts even led races as pacers that first meet. I even said to the golf cart, driver, I said, do you lead the race? And he goes, yeah, I lead the race, just follow me. I thought he thought I was probably a nerd out there. And so during the run, I got ahead of the cart. So then he was pointing to me where to go. I did make it to nationals, and that was in Tallahassee, Florida. Coach Hagee and I flew out. What I vividly remember was the steep hill at the finish line. I remember passing many runners at the end because of the hill work training I did in Sioux Falls. I always kept telling my daughter and my son, run your hills because it builds character and you will get stronger. I was simply amazed that day with the amount of women runners barely running up that final stretch. From the fall of cross country came track. Well, as you all know, running in Sioux Falls in the winter is not fun. We did not have cross-training machines, treadmills, bikes, swimming pools, weights. In fact, if I would have went into that men's weight room to lift weights, I think they all thought I was gone nuts. After the winter came the Howard Wood Relays. My dad was busy in the fields planting corn, and my parents hoped to get to see me run the 1,500 meter, which was on a Friday night. It was getting closer and closer to the start, and finally I seen my parents coming up the track. My mom stood next to Ken Kessinger. She had no idea who he was. She said to him, who's going to win this race tonight? He said, well, that Patty Reisdorfer from Augie here is going to win it. Well, I did win the race that night, and I did make a record. It was also at all these races, I had my sister Joan at that backstretch telling me, run faster, they're on your heels. And I thought to myself, run faster? And then I'd say to myself, I can't hear anybody on my heels. And I was just told never to look back. My mom said, don't you ever look back, you look straight ahead. And that's what I did. I concentrated on winning and running faster to the finish line. That spring, I qualified for the Nationals in the 5 and 10,000 meters. Since the races were so close, we decided to run the 10,000 meters. Now, the 10,000 meters is 24 and a half times around the track. My parents and my sister flew out the following day to Eugene, Oregon. Now, traveling on a plane in the 1980s is a big deal, and it was a big deal, and somewhat unheard of, and not like today where it's common occurrence. Well, I had the pleasure of Larry Borgum. I'm sure everybody knew Larry. Well, he ended up taking me out to Eugene, Oregon. The advice Larry gave me the day of the race was run your race, which I gave all I had, and I accomplished a great time. That summer came the Jackrabbit 15-miler. I knew a couple guys in town, and they said, if you need a ride, we'll pick you up. Okay. Well, I overslept at the dorms one of them knocked on my door and said, hey, are you up or what are you doing? Well, I overslept. Well, I don't know if it was the extra sleep I got, but I did run that race and I set the record and I still have that, and that was at 1 hour and 30 minutes. I lastly want to mention my Navy days. I had a commanding officer who told me in order to get promoted, you need to spread your wings and drill out of Sioux Falls. So off I went to Minneapolis, Riverside, California, Camp Pendleton. I was in Kuwait a year, and I went to Norfolk, Virginia for 6 months. The military requirement is a physical readiness test every 6 months. That includes push-ups, sit-ups, and a 1.5 miles. Well, throughout my Navy career of 25 years, I was never beaten by another Navy woman. So I'm going to give you a quick little story when I was out at Riverside. It was my first day there in Riverside, California, and we had the PRT, physical readiness test. Well, there were 5 men in front of me, and I said, well, what's the route? And they laughed at me, and they said, well, just get in the back and follow us. Okay. Well, little did they know my history, so I followed them about 50 yards, and then I passed all of them, and I finished first. Well, let me tell you, those 5 men were very livid. First of all, they were never beaten by a Navy woman, and they kindly stated, do you run a lot, and where are you from? And all I could think of was, well, take a look at me if I run a lot. And what I kindly stated to them was, I probably am the first woman to pass you, but guys, beware. There will be other women coming up the ranks that are just as good. With this said, I want to close with, I was the toughest one on myself. I thrived on challenges and doing them possible. I wanted to place Augustana on the map and wanted to make Augustana stand out. I remember someone telling me, the day you lighten up on your training is the day someone else will be better. In closing, I would once again thank you from the bottom of my heart for this prestigious award. I truly appreciate it. As I age, I continue to fight with myself to keep my youth, stamina, and grace. I challenge everyone to keep active, keep moving, keep in control, keep the faith, smile, laugh, and enjoy every day. Thank you. Thank you.
And Pat's right, Augustana is a difficult and very great institution. Don't let the fact that I graduated from there dissuade you from what she said. Back then, they were taking anybody. And I have no idea where the library was either, but glad somebody knew. Our next inductee is Doug Schlepp with Bob Winter as his presenter.
Doug Schlepp. The 1970 Java High School grad left the South Dakota School of Mines as the all-time leading men's basketball scorer among South Dakota colleges with 2,440 points. The 5'9", 155-pound guard did so before the advent of the three-point shot. He also held the scoring record for NAIA District 12, which was composed of South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, and Nebraska. He led the 1973 Hard Rockers to their first ever appearance in the national tournament. He also led Mines to the District 12 finals in 1972. Schlepp still holds 13 school records, including points in a game and free throw percentage in a game, as well as free throws in a season and career. He also holds the single game assist record and the season steal mark. In his final 3 seasons, Schlepp averaged 24.3 points, 26.5, 27.3 points per game. He was an honorable mention NAIA All-American in 1973 and a third-team All-American in 1974.
Thank you, everyone. It's such a tremendous honor to be here. I can't tell you how humbling it is. When I think about standing on the stage with the people, the past inductees, and the people here tonight, it just makes me really appreciate what all the previous people who have been before me have done. And this afternoon, I came in and looked at the list of people on the board who are in the Hall of Fame, and I'm standing there looking at it and saying, I can't believe it was overwhelming to me, the fact that I'm going to be in that group, because I have to admit, when I left Java High School and went to Mines, I'd like to say that this was a dream come true, coming into the Hall of Fame, but my biggest dream at that time was just to make the basketball team at School of Mines. I had never in my wildest imagination did I ever dream that I would have any success or that I would be standing here one day being in the Hall of Fame. And, after my career was over, people would ask me, well, what was the secret to your success or what? And, it was hard to explain. I don't know that there really was a secret, but one thing I knew that on that journey that I took, there were so many people that helped me along the way. And without them, I'd have never been able to do what I did. And tonight, I'd like to thank some of those people, most who aren't here tonight. They've either passed away or they're just not here. But I would like to recognize them at least and acknowledge them. But before I do that, I would also like to thank the South Dakota Sports Writers Association, not only for selecting me, but really for the work that you do to put this together. I think others have said it, and it really does mean a lot, because I think it speaks highly of what you're doing for the state of South Dakota. So some of the people I'd like to recognize who aren't here, obviously the most important to me, I'm going to mention first, and the first was my wife of 30 years, Lynette, who unfortunately passed away in April of last year. She would have loved to be here. She was my support. You see, I met Lynette in the 3rd grade, so we've known each other a long time. We didn't start dating till I was a senior, so there was a big lull there. But after my senior year, I went to mine, she went to Northern, and during those times, the weird thing was the basketball was the bond that seemed to hold us together, because we always met. She came to my basketball games, and we always met, and we always had something to talk about. I do, however, suspect that secretly, when we played Northern, I think she was sometimes rooting for Northern, but I'm not really positive about that. But the other two people who meant a lot to me were my mother and father, and my mother passed away in 2003. My father's 93 and living in Greeley, and unfortunately he couldn't be here. But they were definitely my two biggest fans. But one short story about my mother, she was not only my fan, she was the first person I really played serious basketball against. My parents owned a restaurant in Java, and next to the restaurant was this vacant lot, and I convinced my father to put up this basketball hoop, which he did. And when he put it up, I said, "Okay, Dad, I want to play you." And he said, "No, first you have to play your mother. And if you beat your mother, then I'll play you." Well, the funny thing is, I never got to play my father. I think either my mother was the greatest player ever, or she retired very early, so I'm not really. But they were my greatest fans, and I wish they could be here. Many times, that the restaurant that they ran, it was open 7 days a week, so it was hard for them to get to my games. But many times they would drive 5 hours from Java to Rapid or other places to go to my game. They would watch the game, then get in the car, drive back 5 hours that night, and get there in the morning to open up the restaurant. So it was it was great to have such wonderful fans. The next people I would really like to thank relate more to my basketball career, and that would be to my 3 coaches and 3 teammates, or all of my teammates, both at Java High School and South Dakota Mines. The first coach I would like to mention is my high school coach, who was Dan Besnan. He was my coach for 4 years. He taught me the fundamentals of basketball, but more importantly, he taught me the love of basketball. And Dan unfortunately passed away, but I know his wife Ethel and his son Barry are here tonight, and I want them to know how much Dan meant to me. The next coach was Coach Campen, who is in the Hall of Fame. Coach Campen was the only coach who recruited me out of high school, and he was the coach who really taught me college basketball. But more importantly, Coach Campen came up with a style of basketball that was based on, we're going to score more points than the other team, and then we're going to win. So our basketball was all about run and gun and full court press, and it was perfect for me. I was a small person, but I was quick, and so it was a perfect situation. And he created and gathered together a team and a lot of teammates who were just like that. So we had tremendous success, and I was very fortunate to play in that, because our team for at least 2 or 3 years averaged over 100 points a game. And when you score 100 points a game, people have to score a lot of points on the team. I remember my dad one time, I was telling him about how many points I averaged, and he said, "Well, hell, your team averages 100 points a game. Someone has to score a lot of points." So he really brought me back to earth. But unfortunately, Jim Campen left after my sophomore year, and then Coach Mike Riley came in, and Mike was a great coach. He not only embraced that high up-tempo offense, he also believed in defense. And so my junior year, we had a tremendously successful year. It was the most successful year in my career. We won the District 12 championship. Sorry, Greg, I know we beat Dakota Wesleyan in the semifinals, and I always hated playing against Dakota Wesleyan. Greg was such a tremendous player. It was always a game I dreaded. But we were fortunate to win the District 12, and we went to the NAIA tournament, and it was the greatest experience of my basketball life. So, and of course, the coaches were great, but I wouldn't be up here without my teammates, both at Java High School, where we had tremendously successful teams, and then also at Mines, where we not only had good players, we had great players, and we were all unselfish, and we were all great friends, and the chemistry on the team was fabulous. So it was the perfect situation, and I had a great experience, basketball experience at Mines. So in the remaining time I have, I'd like to just mention a few people who are here. I'd like to point out and acknowledge Joe Vague. Joe was a senior when I was a freshman, and you know, unfortunately, I think for Joe, when I came in, I did get to play some as a freshman, and I took Joe's minutes away. But Joe never, he was always good about it, and he was a great mentor, and he really taught me a lot about teamwork. And more importantly, Joe really pushed to get me in the Hall of Fame. So anyway, Joe, I really thank you for that. And the check that I promised you, that's coming in the mail too. But I also want to thank my alma mater, South Dakota School of Mines. The decision I made to go to South Dakota Mines was one of the greatest decisions of my life, both from a basketball standpoint and also just from a career standpoint. And there's two representatives from the School of Mines here tonight, Dr. Heather Wilson, who's the president, and Dr. Larry Simonson, who's the alumni director. They both came here. I can't tell you how much that means to me. It's a great honor that you would come, and it really speaks a lot about you and the university. And then I'd like to really close with thanking my friends who came. My sister and brother-in-law Neil Marlis and brother-in-law Neil came up from Greeley. My brother-in-law Ladine and his wife Joan came down from Java. And then I have a whole bunch of friends from Java and the people I went to school with and people from Tucson. I can't tell you how much it means that you came here to celebrate this with me. It means so much. I know you drove a long way. Some of you flew here, and it really means a lot. And I often had people ask me, do you wish that you would have gone to a bigger school? You know, Java had 70 kids, people in high school, and Mines, I think we only had 2,000 students. They said, don't you wish you'd have been in a bigger school? And my answer was absolutely not. Not even for a second do I regret growing up in Java or going to Mines, because I got the greatest thing anyone could ever hope for, and that's a set of friends who would come here and help me celebrate something that's so special. So I thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and thank you all, because this is such a tremendous honor to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. A little surprised that School of Mines wouldn't have recruited me a little harder out of Lenox High School. Evidently, they saw my math and science scores, too. I heard you can get a good job if you go there. Is that true? Yeah. Steve Heidenreich is our next inductee, and Dean Mann is his presenter. Steve?
Steve Heidenreich with one of the most courageous performances we've seen so far, coming off that 24-hour trip. Here he comes. Can he hold on the lead? Popejoy comes out with him. The United States is about to turn in a 1-2 and a 1,500.
Steve Heidenreich. The 1971 Watertown High and Indiana University grad is the greatest mile runner the state has ever produced, breaking the 4-minute mile barrier 8 times. The 5'10", 130-pounder was the top candidate to make the 1976 Olympic team in the 1,500 meters before a near-fatal hit-and-run accident in 1976 while training. His best mile time was 3.58.4 in 1975 in winning a USA vs. Africa meet in Cleveland, in which he had a blazing final lap of 54 seconds. He ran a 3:38.8 1,500, equivalent to a 3:55 mile, while representing the United States at a meet in Prague, Czechoslovakia in 1975. Heidenreich anchored the Indiana 4-mile relay team to a world record. The first Big Ten runner to run a 4-minute mile indoors, 4 minutes exactly in 1976, he was a 2-time All-American in the mile. In high school, he set records in the mile run, 4 minutes 11.2 seconds, and the 2-mile run, 7:55.1. He finished second in the mile, 4 minutes 11.8 seconds at the National Prep Meet near Chicago.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so honored. First of all, I want to thank my biggest fans, my parents, Merle and Dolores Heidenreich. I mean, they traveled everywhere when I was at Indiana University, went to all my meets, and it was great to have them there. I want to thank also my wife, Dodie, who was not able to be here. She is such great support. She's my best friend, my partner for a life. And she's just a great support. She was not able to make it because she recently had total knee replacement and is recovering from that. I want to thank my brothers and sisters for their support, and especially my son. My son helped me get into coaching and teaching, and I'm very appreciative of that. I was blessed to have some great coaches. The first great coach I had was Vic Godfrey. Now, poor Vic. My teammate, Drake Teetsy, and I, we decided, you know what? We need to do workouts twice a day. So we had a plan. I would go up and pick up Drake, and then we would run over to Coach Godfrey's apartment and get him up, and we'd run our 4 to 5 mile loop. Well, poor Ruth. I'm sure that every day in the cold winters, she was hoping we would not come by. But we did. We did. We were dedicated. We wanted to be, in Watertown, we didn't want to be the best in the state. We wanted to be the best in the country. The next year when I was a sophomore, I was watching the 68 Olympics. And I was amazed that the U.S. Olympic Committee was smart enough to send the athletes to Lake Tahoe to train where it was high altitude to get them ready for the Mexico Olympics. And I thought, this is pretty cool. I'm going to be on the USA team. I'm going to be a sub 4 minute miler. So I told my teammates that, and they kind of said, Steve, first of all, you're slow. You're real slow. You're a 2-miler. Secondly, you're from Watertown. To be an Olympian, you got to train twice a day, every day. And I said, I know. I know what it takes. And I trained twice a day, every day. The next year, I was working with Coach Vic Michelson. And Coach Vic Michelson was receptive to what I had to say. I said, Coach, we got to train harder. And we did. And my times went from 4:45 to 4:16. I won the state championship in Rapid City. And in that year, with my teammates who pushed me every day, Paul Stormo, Drake Teetsy, and Barry Carpenter, we worked hard, and at the Drake relays, we ran the 4x880 relay in 7:55. Boy, was that a thrill. We were ready. I knew when I won the state meet in 4:16 that I was going to be on the USA team and break 4 minutes in the mile. The next year, I won the state meet. I ran at the ESD conference. I ran a mile in 4:11. Won the state meet, and competed and was second place in the national championship. I was recruited by Coach Baker. Coach Baker was the coach who coached Lee Evans. Lee Evans was gold medalist in the 400 meters in the Mexican Olympics. He also anchored the relay team to a gold medal and set a world record. Sam Bell had coached several sub-4-minute milers, and I said, this is the place for me. In 1975, I finally broke 4 minutes in the mile. That year I had 8 sub-4-minute miles. I was the Big Ten champion, finished 4th place in the NCAA championship, and as the second American. That year I was also trying to get a 4.0 GPA, and I was using the traits and characteristics that Olympians use to be successful. One day, I was riding my bike home to my apartment. I had a note on the door, and it said, "Congratulations, Steve. You have made the USA track team. You are to fly to Russia tomorrow." Fly to Russia tomorrow. So I called up my mom and said I needed my birth certificate. She had a copy faxed to me. The next day, I drove to the airport. I went up to the counter and I said, "Hi, my name is Steve Heidenreich, and I'm supposed to fly to Russia." "Oh, yes, Mr. Heidenreich, we've been waiting for you." They gave me a big Team USA bag with all my equipment. I flew to New York City. The next day, I got my passport by just showing them my driver's license. And in less than 10 minutes, I had a passport and a visa. We flew to Russia. Actually, we first flew to East Berlin. I had to go through the wall. They inspected our bags. They said, "Okay, Heidenreich, you got 2 blue jeans and cologne. You better come out with 2 blue jeans and cologne, or we have a very cold place for you to stay." And I said, "Yes, sir." Well, Russia was a communist country, and their airline is Aeroflot. Well, they don't exactly take off on a schedule. They take off when Russia wants them to take off. So we waited and waited and waited. And finally, after several hours, not just 2 hours, several hours, we took off. So the Russians didn't give us very much sleep. But my teammate and I ran a great race. I ran my last lap in 55 seconds, and I got beat because my teammate ran 54 seconds. But he taught me a valuable lesson. The next race in Prague, Czechoslovakia, we chased the world record. I chased Jim Ryan's record. I was in last place with 1 lap, with 300 meters to go. And in the last stretch with 100 meters to go, I passed 11 runners. And all 12 runners finished within 10 meters. My teammate won, and I finished second. The next race would be the USA versus Africa meet, and I knew what I had to do. I was getting beat because I couldn't run my last lap faster than 55 seconds. So I said, to beat the Kenyans, I've got to do it in 54 seconds. Well, you know what? I set them up. I let them take the lead, and I patiently waited for the very, very last second. And at about 150 meters to go, I exploded. Got a 20-meter lead on all the Kenyans, and that race was over. It was mine. I did a victory lap just like Steve Prefontaine, and all of the fans in Cleveland were on their feet cheering me on because an American had beaten the Kenyan milers. Later that year, in the World Championship, the World University Games in Rome, again, I'm from South Dakota, and I was planning on winning. And I went for that win. But I finished second, lost to Thomas Fessinghauge from Germany. The next spring, everything was going on well. In the wintertime, I ran a 4 flat mile indoors, so I was ready. I anchored our relay team to a world record, and a few months before the games, when I was training for the Olympics, I fell victim to a hit-and-run accident, and that kept me out of the game, kept me out of the Olympics. But what I learned from it, by using the characteristics of an Olympian, you can be great anything you want to be. And I also learned from that accident that yes, miracles do happen, and life is great. Thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you, Steve. And finally, we have an inductee that I can beat up. None of the other inductees I had a chance at, but this guy I know I could whip if I needed to. Our last inductee is Ben Leber. Mike Hendrickson is his presenter.
After a good first down run by Grant, Rogers is sacked. Took a direct shot from Ben Leber.
Ben Leber, the 1997 Vermilion High grad, played 10 seasons as an outside linebacker in the NFL, mostly as a starter. The 6'3", 244-pounder was a third-round draft pick of the San Diego Chargers in 2002 and was an immediate standout as he was named Pro Bowl Weekly and Football Digest All-Rookie Teams. He played 4 seasons with San Diego, then 5 with the Minnesota Vikings before finishing his career with 1 season with the St. Louis Rams in 2011. His best season with the Vikings was 2007, when he had 67 tackles and 5 sacks. He also scored his only touchdown with Minnesota on a fumble recovery in 2006. In his NFL career, Leber had 496 tackles, 24 sacks, 13 forced fumbles, 12 fumble recoveries, and 5 interceptions. At Vermilion, he rushed for 1,404 yards as a junior, 1,350 as a senior. At Kansas State, he was a 2-time All-Big 12 linebacker. Leber is now a TV and radio football commentator in Minneapolis.
All right, thank you. Just like everybody else before me, I just have to say thank you to the committee. It is quite an honor. A lot of you may not know this about my family and myself, that we're transplants. We're not from South Dakota wholeheartedly. We moved here in 1990 when I was going in the 6th grade. So I'm not really familiar with a lot of the sports legends, and it's only been recently, especially since I've been inducted in this class, that I've seen just the special athletes that have come out of here. And it really is truly an honor to be a part of it, not only the past inductees, but this current year as well. You know, I think there's been a round of humility with all the athletes up here, and I'm no different. You know, growing up in Vermilion, playing football there, my 5 years at Kansas State, my 4 years in San Diego, 5 years with the Vikings, and 1 year in St. Louis, I never thought in my wildest dreams that any of those things were possible, because I just never thought about it. I never thought about playing in the NFL. So I'm truly, truly humbled just by this experience, being honored here today. And I could share with you just, you know, some past successes, but I think, like Greg was talking about earlier, there's adversity in every one of our lives, and it's no different with me. And I actually want to share some of those stories with you because, I don't know, frankly, I think they're kind of more fun. So my first one was, again, coming out of Vermilion. You know, I was trying to keep up with my brothers. My oldest brother, Jason, was a great player, as was my brother, Aaron. He was more of a baseball player, so I tried to keep up with him on the baseball field. But when I got to Kansas State, I was just happy to be there. I was happy to have a full ride. I was happy to have my education paid for. And there was a pivotal moment that happened at Kansas State. It was my first year, my first ever training camp. And I lay there in the dorm room, scared to death, thinking about what I was up against. One of my good buddies, my roommate, he was a highly touted player as well, was in the bed next to me, sleeping away in our afternoon nap when we had some downtime. And that next practice was actually the first practice where we strapped the pads on. You know, we're going to have this Oklahoma drill where we literally just smash into each other. There really is no point to it. It's just madness. I think the coaches just get some sort of weird kick out of it. And so I knew that, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go out there and this is Division I football and this is the big boys and I got to put a helmet on, I got to do the Oklahoma drill. I'm going to get killed and I'm not going to make it. I'm going to fail. And I laid there in bed and I really thought about quitting. I just thought, this is too big for me. This is, you know what? I can't do this. This is too big for me. It's so overwhelming. And a lot of different thoughts went through my mind, not letting down my family, just everything I'd worked for. And at some point in time, when it was time to get up, I actually got up and I got out of bed and I said, you know, just go see what happens. You know, just get through the day, experience it. And I did, and I experienced it. My confidence grew, my abilities grew, and one day after another, I became a pretty good player. The second big-time adversity that I'd ever faced was my second year in San Diego with the Chargers. A little bit of background was my rookie year, I actually had a pretty good year. Had a couple sacks. The public and the team really thought that I was going to be this next great linebacker in San Diego. So what did they do? They cut Junior Seau, one of the best linebackers to ever play. He went off to Miami to play. And once again, this overwhelming pressure just kind of fell on me that I'm going to be this guy. And was I able to handle it? And to tell you the truth, I didn't. I didn't handle it very well. Team-wise, we weren't very good. We finished 4-12. And personally, I just couldn't grasp the defense. I couldn't grasp the weight of being the guy in San Diego in the National Football League. And I remember that offseason thinking, I should just quit. I can't do another season like this. This was not fun for me. We heard earlier about having the love for the game. And at that moment, and there were some of those dark days, I didn't have the love for the game. But again, with the help of my wife, I remember in San Diego standing in our kitchen having a conversation about just this last season and, you know, all the question marks that I had. You know, she really helped me through those dark times about, you know, just picking yourself up, just focus on the next day and kind of get through it and push yourself. And again, that was in year 2 of a 10-year career. So, you know, for all you people out there, all of us inductees have gone through adversity, and we'd be lying if we said everything was roses. So there are dark times, there are times where you question yourself, and trust me, you can get through it. You can get through anything, and who knows what can happen. As everybody else has said, there's been countless number of people that helped me along the way. No way could I have done this by myself. On the professional level, there's been 3 people that I look back at my career and say, these people really shaped my life. And number 1 was the Hall of Fame college football coach and my coach at Kansas State, Bill Snyder. A lot of things that he taught me there, you talk about timing. You're an 18-year-old kid. You don't even know what hard work really means. And for those of you that don't know the type of program that Bill Snyder runs, it is tough. It is very much like the military. It is no frills. It is physical. It is mentally and emotionally demanding. And it was hard. It was very, very hard to get through some of those days. But it was perfect for me because it really, truly shaped the foundation of what I needed to be as a man, as a student athlete, and which I didn't know at the time, a professional athlete. So I owe a lot to his tutelage, to his guidance. He truly taught me how to be a man. Number 2 was Marty Schottenheimer. He was my first coach in the NFL. He took a chance on me. They drafted me in the 3rd round, 71st overall in the 2002 NFL draft. And, you know, all you need is a chance sometimes. And I still remember, you know, this has nothing to do with anything, but just one of my fondest memories of my time with Marty. I remember walking to his office the very first day that I got to San Diego. So you get drafted, and the very next week you're just flown out there for your rookie minicamp. And I go to have my sort of private meeting with him, and I walk into his room, and the first thing he says to me is like, "Man, look how long those arms are." And I'm like, really? That's the first thing you're going to say to me is you're going to talk about my arm length? But that's the way these coaches are, man. They look at you physically and how you're going to fit, and I guess my arm length must have been something that they were looking for. So who knows? I mean, if you guys pay attention to the NFL draft, it gets that meticulous. And so apparently Marty really liked my long arms. And thirdly, I mentioned him before, Junior Seau. Junior, you know, he was well established in the league when I got there in 2002. And he took me under his wing. He took my wife under his wing. We got to know him, his family. He introduced me to all the older teammates. And for that, I was forever grateful. The team accepted me right away because of Junior. And I didn't get the same razzing. I didn't get tormented like a lot of the rookies did because of Junior. I learned a lot from Junior, a lot of things he probably didn't know, but I watched him like a hawk. One of the things I'm really good at is observing. I don't like to talk a lot, and I like to watch and learn. And I watched Junior on an everyday basis, how he conducted himself, how he showed up to practice. He had a breakfast club where he would gather as many guys as possible and work out at 5:30 in the morning before practice was even officially to start. And he did that every day. And there was this drive, this determination that I could never get there. I could never match it. But I was a better player because I tried to emulate him. He was as professional on the field. He treated practice like a game, and we hear all those things about practicing and playing as if it's a game, and he did that. And I tried to do that, and I tried to emulate him and Rodney Harrison, another great safety that I got to play with. So for that, I'm forever grateful for Junior. Personally, I have to thank my parents. They've always been there for everything that my siblings have ever done. They travel far and wide. It doesn't matter what the road conditions are in South Dakota, but they will travel to every basketball game, every football game. My mom always told me, almost sometimes an annoyance to a point was annoying, that you can do and be anything you wanted. And I know a lot of parents say that to their kids, but when you hear it all the time and it's kind of drilled into your head, I think that really allowed me to believe that I could be and do anything that I wanted. So for that, I'm forever thankful. For my dad, he was determined, he was disciplined. One of the great things that I always took from him was he never missed a day of work. I never in my life had ever seen this guy, the principal of a high school, miss a day of work. And I still take that with me to this day, that, man, here's a guy that no matter how good or bad he felt, he was just always showing up, always there. So those values, I want to say thanks. I have to thank my brothers who aren't here, but again, my brothers set a standard for me. I was number 3 in the line. I had my oldest brother, Jason, a middle brother, Aaron, then me. And I was just kind of tagged along, and they set such a high standard, not only athletically, but academically. Being that my dad's a principal, academics was such a huge thing in our family. And for those guys to show me the way to how to be a student athlete in high school, and both of them played collegiately and were student athletes in college, they kind of paved the way for me to strive for something, to kind of live up to their abilities and what they've done. And lastly, I do have to thank my wife. My wife is here tonight. She's been in and out, chasing around our 3 kids. I have a 7, a 5, and an almost 2-year-old. My wife has been through so much. We met my freshman year of college, and it took a while for us to date because she was a sorority girl. I was a football player in Kansas State. That just doesn't mix. So, so we made it work, and I put out the vibe, and she bit. So we started dating my sophomore year, and we've been together ever since. And she's seen my highest, she's seen my lowest. She's always there to support me, and she's also, as my parents will know, she's always there when I need it to kick me in the butt. And I definitely need that at times. And she's a strong woman that has given up so much in a world where it's very selfish, and I know that. To be a professional athlete and to try to continue this determination and drive, I can think it's very self-consuming. Whether I'm at home or I'm at work, you're always thinking about how to get better. So there are a lot of times where I'm at home and mentally I'm not there. And I'm thinking about the next day, or I'm thinking about what I got to improve the next day. And so she's sacrificed a lot and continues to do that. So thank you, and I love you. I will leave you guys with this. I heard a quote. This was just maybe a year ago. It comes from Misty Copeland. Misty Copeland is the first African-American lead ballerina in the American Ballet Theater in New York, one of the three major ballet troupes nationwide. So she's had to overcome a lot of adversity, and I actually saw a quote that she had where she says, "Every day I try to prove myself to myself." It's kind of a goofy quote, right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you first read it. But if you think about it, and I reflect on what I've done in my career, and what I hope to continue to do in my career now as a broadcaster or wherever it takes me, think about that. We often get caught up in distractions around us, about what other people are doing, comparing ourselves. Well, he or she's doing this. Why did they get this opportunity and not me? When I look back at my career, I inadvertently was doing what she was talking about. I woke up every day just trying to prove something to myself. Was I strong enough? Was I fast enough? Was I smart enough? Was I tough enough to make it in football? To make it as a student athlete, to make it as a friend, to make it as a husband and a father. All those things I still think about to this day, and I think she sums it up perfectly. So if I can leave you with anything, think about that tomorrow. Something to strive for is, don't worry about what everybody else is thinking. Prove yourself to yourself. Thank you, and have a good night.
Good job. Thank you, Mr. Leber. Also want to invite you to stay and mix it around a little bit, visit with people you haven't seen in a while, or meet new people. Also, you can now get down to the presentation area and the display area. Again, another night where we see why South Dakota is not just great in athletics, but in their people. Another great group of inductees. I want to thank again First National Bank and Bob and Nan Baker for the Premier Center display. Also Sanford Health Gateway Lounge, First Premier Bank and Bank Card, our primary sponsors. We hope to put the video from this banquet on YouTube or our Hall of Fame site. You can also check out the website for banquet photos. I would delete the ones you see of me. Usually they put 10,000, is it? Up there. I'm kidding, it's 2,000. And they recycle those, so that's good. They also recycle the photos of the inductees, and you can learn a lot about them all. So thank you for coming. I hope you were able to overcome my inadequacy again here tonight. And it's great to be a South Dakotan. Good night.